Hello class, today we're doing lesson 12.6, select an appropriate display. So here on page 909, we have this chart. Now, do we know what kind of chart it is? So we got one person that said a bar graph so far, a lot of histograms, we got another bar graph, we got a ton of histograms. Here's the fun thing, it's a bar graph, not a histogram. And the one difference, the one thing that makes it not a histogram, the only thing is that there are not numbers on this bottom and that they are not spread equally. It's not, and as Angelo says, there are spaces. Yeah, bar graphs tend to not, like, they don't need spaces, but histograms tend to not have spaces. That's part of them. But as we see, this bottom side isn't split up into even numbers, such as number of cars, 1 through 5, 6 through 10, all of that. Hey, but what kind of graph is this kind of like on the side? If we were to draw it and then tilt it to our side, what do you think that graph would look like? Exactly, if we did this and then turned it on its side where this is going to be our x-axis and this would be our y, I know it's a little hard to picture, then you would see that it would be a histogram because we're stacking up how many. There would be the speed and then how many animals for the speed. So it's interesting. It's also a table, that's what it would be. So it's kind of introducing our way to a histogram. And if we tilted it, it'd be a histogram. So let's see this. The display shows the maximum speed of 6 animals. So it says to use the bar graph to fill in the number of animals column in the table. Oh, it says even bar graph right here. I wasn't even paying attention either. So we're going to fill out in the table. Excellent. So we got our period 1, A through M pointed out. Cat is 30. So I'm putting 1 in there, 1 tally mark here. For rabbit, period 1, N through Z said there's rabbit is at 35. Period 4, A through M said reindeer's at like 32, 33. That's in the 31 through 35. So now we have a total of 2, or just those 2 tally marks. Squirrel, we got one person who pointed out that it is 13 or 14, so it's in the 11 through 15 column. And then wild turkey is 15, meaning again we've got those 2 tally marks, bringing us to a score of 2. Do we have any animals who go 1 through 5 miles an hour on this list? No. Do we have any that go 6 through 10? No. 16 to 20? No. 21 through 25? No. But we do know that we have 2 animals that go between 11 and 15, 2 animals that go between 31 and 35, and 1 animal that goes between 26 and 30. So we see all of that. Now, which display allows us to find the rabbit's maximum speed? So which one tells us the fastest speed a rabbit can go? Is it going to be our table, or is it going to be our bar graph? Excellent, yes, it is our bar graph. On the other one, all it's telling us is that rabbit happens to be one of those 2 animals that's going 31 to 35 miles an hour. The rabbit could be going 31 miles an hour. That could be its top speed. I mean, that's what it is. But now let's think about this. In which display is it easier to find the number of animals with a maximum speed of 15 miles per hour or less? So which one of these is it easier? Which one of these is it easier to see? So I've got someone saying table. Excellent. Yes, Lucy, Sophia, Izzy, Hannah, and Emmett, you pointed out table because we look here, and Caesar, Ani, Chris, I know the people are going still, Nathan, Angel. But we see, otherwise I'd have to individually look, okay, where's the 15? Okay, the 15's here. Okay, so then I've got this one, and then I've got this one. Okay, are we sure about the others? Is there any more? And imagine if we just had 100 animals. If I went to the zoo and I'd have to draw a whole line across 15 and I'd have to go check each individual animal, or I could just consult my table and go, 2 of them are at 15 and there, 0 are at 10 and below, and then 0 are at 5 and below. So our obvious choice is 2. So exactly, that's why there's different graphs for different things. So I want you to copy this into your notebook. This is important because this is each of the different kinds of graphs that we've learned about so far, and it is when it is best when we use them. It is best when we use them. So a bar graph is best when we show a number of items in a specific category. So for example, cats, dogs, lizards, favorite colors, students in a classroom, like how many students are in Ms. Diaz's classroom, how many students are getting A's, how many students are getting D's. That's great to use a bar graph. A box plot shows those measures of variation in data, and it's also useful for very large sets of data. So when we have things like that, we would be just finding all of those. We'd be finding the median, the Q1, Q3, IQR, technically the range, which is a lot of things, not super fun to do, but also not very hard to interpret on their own. Histograms show frequency. That number frequency means having to do with numbers of data divided into equal intervals. So histograms are almost exactly the same as bar graphs, almost exactly that same, except they've got numbers on both axes. Then line graph shows change over a period of time. So our lines go up and down and up and down. You can look into certain things, like currently right now a popular line graph is an unemployment graph or a stock market graph. All of those would be considered line graphs. And then you've got line plot, also known as dot plot, same things, that show how many times each number occurs. That's the one that looks like this, where they had the X's over them. You could also have made them hearts. They all just need to be the same thing. It's just they do it for what's easiest to see and write. So let's see. Which display allows you to see the mode of the data? So just by looking, do we think that it's going to be table 1 or do we think it's going to be table 2? Technically graph 1 or graph 2. In fact, without saying it, I either want you to type in, you're going to type in line plot, or you're going to type in, box plot. So you're going to type in line plot or box plot. Excellent. The ones who have submitted it by the time I'm reading are Michelle, Lucy, Jenna, Yureen, Rafi, Isis, Nathan, Izzy, Angelo, Hannah, Carmen, Emmett, Yureen, Ani, Justin, and Madison have all pointed out, yes, it is the line plot. That is the only one where we can see the most of our data. Here, we know most of our data is 27. Here, all 27 is telling us is that it is Q3, aka the median of our other side. Does that tell us anything about it being the most of our data? No. Even Angel says right now, he says line plot, exactly. Perfect job, you guys. It's line plot. So that's the only way that we can see what is the most of our data. So the line plot shows the most of the data. The box plot shows the spread of the data, but it does not show the mode. Which graph would be better to look at to find the median? Oops, well, let's just erase that. Which graph would be better to look at to show that median? So type in the thing, what do you think would be better to see the median? Yes, as stated so far, we have Michelle, Emmett, Izzy, Rafi, Lucy, Jenna, Angelo, Nathan, Isis, Justin, Sophia, Angel, Ani, Madison, and Hannah have written so far box plot. Exactly. We look at a box plot and right there is our median. So we know our median is 25. If I was to look at this chart right here, I would have no idea what my median is. I'd have to cancel and do all sorts of cancels, and then I'd eventually end up with, oh, okay, it is 25. Or if I was unlucky enough, I'd end up with two numbers that I'd have to find the mean of in order to get my median. This box plot here, it tells me everything. This box plot tells me my Q1. It tells me my median. It tells me my Q3. It tells me 50% of my data is above 25 and 50% of my data is below 25. It tells me 50% of my data is between 24 and 27. This is stuff that I can't see automatically on a line plot or a different graph. Let's look at this one. A survey compared different brands of hair shampoo. The table shows the number of first choice responses for each brand. Select an appropriate type of display to compare the numbers of the responses. So, 35 people said they liked brand A the most. 12 12 said they liked brand B. 42 said they liked C. 24 said they liked D. 8 said they liked E. And 11 said they liked F. What do you think would be the best type of way to display that data? What do you think would be the easiest way for us to see, the easiest way for us to draw, the easiest way? So again, let's think about these are the graph choices that we have. Excellent. Yes, everybody that's hit enter so far, every single person has told me bar graph. Yeah, bar graph's a great one to use. If we used a line plot, that would also work. But it'd be pretty difficult to draw out that many 35s and to label them that many times. And then even then we wouldn't be able to find the median necessarily because of the fact that they're not both numbers. A histogram needs both numbers. We can't do a line graph with both without having both numbers because it's plotted as X's and Y's. So yes, the data is best for a bar graph. That's the best way to display it. So here are the steps that you would do for a bar graph. And this is important, and I highlighted this important part. Draw and label horizontal and vertical axes. Then you add a title, okay? The most important step is that you label. You must label. If you don't label, I have no idea what you're talking about. If you showed me this graph right here, you could say, oh, it's the initials someone's last name starts with. You know, you could say, oh, it's this. You need to label all your graphs always. Otherwise, we have no idea what you're talking about. So then, as you know, for a bar graph, you draw a bar, blah, 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 just to reach the amount that it needs to reach. Excellent. So the best one for using here would be a bar graph. What about here? So here, we need an appropriate type of display of numbers that allow you to count the number of students with a score of 85. So here's what they want us to do. We have math scores, and we have numbers for each of their scores, which means we have numbers for both sides of our graph. We have the score number they get and the amount of people getting that score. So two of our sides are numbers. We don't have a side, what's your favorite color, how many, what shampoo, how many. We have two sides with numbers. And it asks us to select an appropriate type of display to count the number of students who score 85. So what would be the best display here to allow us to count the students who have 85? Yes, for those who selected line plot, you are absolutely correct. Histogram would have only one issue wrong with it, and that's that a histogram is a range of numbers. So the score might be from 80 to 84, and then from 85 to technically 89 or whatever. And so we see that, and we wouldn't be able to tell exactly how many had 85. But for those thinking histogram, you were right up that market because we had two different lines of numbers. So we had the scores and the amount of scores. So exactly, that's why. However, the best one here is line plot, because when we do a line plot, we've got our x, 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 x to count the number. So if we were going to do this, we would make our little line plot. We're gonna make a quick little line plot right here. So perfect, there's our little line plot that we have right here. It kind of looks like if we made it a bar graph, which we technically could, because here we could just draw lines and our numbers would be whatever they would be from 90 to 95, but a great way to see it is in a line plot. So look at all the different types of things we have. We've got a line plot, dot plot, we got our bar graph, we got a histogram, oh my! It's like Wizard of Oz over here. So let's look at some of our guided practice together. We're gonna tell what is the best. So which display, literally this is just telling me what do you find easier, ready? Which display makes it easier to determine the greatest number of calendars sold, okay? So which one tells me the greatest number of calendars sold? So in our first one, we've got our names. Jasmine, she sold 6. Rory sold 11. AJ sold 10. Liam sold 6. Mackenzie sold 14. Trey sold 10. Miriam sold 5. And Hector, good on you, sold 15. So which one's going to be used to show the greatest number of them shown. So what do we think? So every single person that hit enter from the very top, we have Jenna, Caesar, Emmett, Carmen, Sophia, Isis, Dominic, Madison. We got Ani that all said bar graph. And then we got Michelle who said line plot. You want to know what the book said our answer was? Line plot. You want to know what the true answer is? They both work. Because if I'm looking here, I can just automatically look. There's my biggest number. That's the one right there. 15. That's the biggest. Or I can look along my bar graph and say, oh, that's the biggest one right there. I can see easily that it's 15. But the reason line plot might be the best choice for this one, as Angel also says, is because look at how close some of these are. And maybe I couldn't exactly tell. Maybe Hector sold actually 16 and I just couldn't see and stuff like that. But on this one over here, I can tell the exact highest number is 15. So in this case, you could say of these two, it'd be the line plot. But would you have been wrong to make it a bar graph? No. In fact, the thing about bar graphs and line plots is it also depends on how much space you put between your data. So you see how each of these lines here represents 5? That makes it kind of hard to see when our plot points are so small, when our data points are small, when we've got people who sold 5. But if we had each of them, each line meant 1 or even 2, then that would make that bar graph easier to see the data. So we would see that. So it depends. Well, line plot might work a little bit better in this exact case if you had different amounts between our lines of data. If instead of it being 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then that one might have won. Or either way. Let's see. Select an appropriate type of display for the data gathered about each situation. So, the favorite cafeteria lunch item of the 6th grade students. So, first of all, line plots and histograms, they both need numbers on all axes. Do these have numbers on both axes? What do we think? Yes or no? Exactly, they don't, because one of our items is of 6th grade students. Perfect. That's a number, not just because it's 6th, but because there's a number of 6th grade students. But then the next one is favorite lunch item. That's not a number. So right there, we automatically are going to be knocking out the histograms and we're going to be knocking out our line plot because that doesn't work. So let's think then. What's kind of like a line plot, but not? Think about question 1 and think about which one would work the best. Hannah, what do you think?
I'm not too sure, actually. I'm just trying to figure it out right now.
Ooh, I like that answer. The greatest answer here is bar graph. And the reason for it is when we're doing our bar graph, let's pretend it was up here. Instead of having these people's names, we'll just make it their favorite items. This one's going to be the coffee cake. This one's the orange juice. This one's the concha. This one's the whatever. We see all of that. So a bar graph would be able to easily show us on a chart how high it goes. Just like I said, a bar graph could also be used to show us the greatest number of calendars shown. Okay, there's not always just one correct answer. There can be multiple. The thing is, as long as you know what answers don't work, then we're good. What about this one? The temperature from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. So what do we think about this one? The temperature. First of all, do we have 2 types of numbers or just 1? Exactly. So it is 2 axes that have numbers. Thank you, Michelle, Lucy, Emmett, Hannah, Ella, Marcus, Angel, Carmen, Sophia. Thank you, guys. Yes, because temperature is indeed a number of degrees and time is indeed a number. So then let's think. We got 2 numbers here. Awesome. So now we got a couple different options that we can use. Think about it. We got our box graphs. We got our histograms. We got our line and dot plots. We even have, as I also am forgetting here, we just have a line graph. I just keep remembering and I'm including more into our thing. So, as I'm saying, we've got all of these. Line graph. Now, let's think about this. Because I never actually would have guessed this number. I never would have guessed this graph. what are we looking at? Are we looking at how, like, are we trying to find the mode of something? Are we trying to find the median of something? Are we trying to see how much something changes? Are we trying to do what? So what are we trying to find? Which of those three? Excellent. As Izzy, Lucy, and Madison have typed in, we are trying to find the change in temperature. So we're looking at the temperature at 6 a.m., then 7 a.m., then 8 a.m., then 9 a.m. So which one would be a good one? And Jasmine and Ella too, and Ani too, which one would be a good one to look at change? The correct answer, according to the book, is line graph. And that's because line graphs are what allow you to see trends over time. So for example, if I was to do this, if I was to make this trend, I would have my axes here, this 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? And then here I'm going to have, okay. So here I got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Here, I'm going to say it's 60 degrees, 70 degrees, 80 degrees, 90 degrees, 100 degrees. Okay, that's way too many degrees. Anyway, so then I'm going to graph my thing. At 6 a.m., it was 60 degrees. Then it went up to 65. Then it went up to 70. Oh, but then we had a cold front. Oh wait, I did it on the wrong axis. I already did this on the wrong axis, so hold on. Because watch. Don't worry, I can still keep the bottom how it is right now. Because I can keep this at 60, 70, 80, 90, and then I'm just going to make that one 100, and this one 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How did I know I made a mistake with the axis? It's because I realized that my dependent variable is my y-axis, always the one that depends on my independent variable, my x-axis. So my x needed to be independent. Time does not depend on anything else. Temperature depends on time. So I'm graphing this at 8 a.m. Oops, I hit a bit of a cold front, so I go back down to 60. At 9 a.m., whoop, it's so hot, I jump to 90, and then it's 100, then it's 100. So then I have my line graph where I go like this, and I can see my change over time, which is why a line graph would be a really good way to do it. A histogram, we would have to sort them into an equal amount. So for example, I'd have to have between 6 and 7, between 7 and 8. Yes, those are only 1 hour time things, but then it would also be reaching my certain thing. So that, it does work. However, what if I had one that I sorted between, I just decided to make 6 through 9, technically, and then, 9:01 through 12, 6:01 through 9, just to make our lives a little easier. Exactly. That's clumping all of those. So it doesn't necessarily work with a histogram. But it works if you have it like one. Bar graph, that does work too, as we see it. Box plot doesn't really work for that one. So that's why we see it. There's a ton of different ways that you could do it. But here, the best way to do it is our line graph, which, yes, is different than a line plot. So let's look at this one. Here, select and make an appropriate display for the following data. So what would be a good way that I could see this data? It doesn't tell me that it wants anything. So it doesn't say, oh, I want to see the mode. It doesn't tell me I want to see the median. It doesn't tell me I want to see that. So I just want to see this data. I want to see these numbers, but I want to see them in an easier way for my eyes to look at. First of all, are there multiple, is there 2 axes of numbers or just 1 axis of numbers? Is it 2 of numbers or just 1? We got some people saying 2, we got some people saying 1. Let's see. Number of push-ups done. So that's talking about a number. That's one of our axes. And then here are our answers. All numbers. So what does that mean? Both axes have numbers. So because we are counting the number of push-ups by each student, one student did 15. So if I was going down this list, I'd say Angel did 15, Angelo did that 20, Ani, I'm just literally going down the names, did 8, Brendan did 11, Carmen did 6, Caesar did 25, Chase Rodriguez did the 32, Chris did 12, we got all of this. I was literally just going alphabetically. But yeah, so we see that. That's the number of students and the number of push-ups. So there's each axis. So both of the 2 axes have numbers. So what would be a good way to look at this one, though? Because if I had to do it in a certain way, for example, with my bar graphs, each one represents 1 number. So I would have to put each one for each individual number. what about for line graphs or for box plots? So what would be the best one for this one? What do you think? So some of the answers I got included bar graph, line plot, or histogram. And then I got one line graph. Bar graph, histogram, or line plot? Any of those would have worked. Yes, that's great. Any single one of those would have worked. The sample answer it gave me was histogram, but only because it just sorted it into even groups of 10. So for example, they had 0 to 9, then right next to it they had 10 through 19, then next to it. And it's because we had such a big amount of data values that that doing histogram makes it a little bit easier. Because for example, our smallest data value that we have here is 5. And our biggest data value that we have here is 40. So if we were doing a line plot or a bar graph, we'd have to draw 40 different spots. But that's not the point. It still works. Our histogram is just simplifying it a little bit. A histogram is basically like a squished in simplified bar graph that has numbers. But yes, all of the ones that you guys said, the line plot, dot plot, the bar graph, and the histogram, all of those work. The ones that wouldn't work would be box plot and line graph. Those tell change in time, those tell other things. So those would be the two that wouldn't work. So your homework today is going to be page 913, numbers 1 through 4. Okay, so it's numbers 1 through 4.